Well, back on January the 19th of this year, a very significant event happened in my life. I worked for the last time. January the 19th was my last day of employment after about 50 and a half years of continuous service in pastoral ministry. And from that point on, I became officially retired. Now, I want you to focus on that word, retired. Because I found the fact that I was retired opened me up for all kinds of sarcastic observations. Such as, well, now that you've got all this time on your hands, what are you going to do? And of course, somebody was always brilliant enough to propose what they thought I ought to do with my time now that I was retired. However, I have found that in many ways, I don't know how much I actually gave up from pastoring in the Sacramento church. You see, the young man I turned it over to seemed to be very clever in trying to get me to do most of the things I was doing before. And I still found myself editing videos and logging all the donations, and I found myself still on the speaking schedule, still on the worship leading schedule, still hosting senior Bible studies, still giving children's stories, and the list goes on. And I looked at him one day and I said, "And what just are you doing with your time during the day?" Well, a little fun at his expense. But I will have to say, especially during the week, I am pretty much footloose and fancy-free. I've been blessed with a wife who does not dream up many honeydew points on my list. You know, honeydew this and honeydew that. So I get away with that pretty good. And I find myself having time to just, I don't want to say do nothing, but try to get a feel for a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of solitude, a little bit of sitting in my chair in the backyard, looking at the beautiful scenery, which I'll talk about in a minute, and just being free to sit there. And what is the hurry to go and do anything? But I was enjoying myself doing that one day, and this nagging little thought began to play in the back of my conscience. Okay, this nagging little guilt trip or arrow from the devil or whatever you want to put it as. And the question went like this: okay, is this what God wants you to be doing with your time today? How many of you have ever seriously focused in on that question? I confess I had not. Does God have a say what I do with my time? Does God much care what I do with my time? Does God have an eternal agenda laid out for me? Or is God pretty much left me to do what I want to do? And I thought to myself, I'm going to do a little scratching around in scriptures, and I'm going to see what I might find about what God says about what I should do or should not do with my day. So are you ready? All right, we're going to have a little interactive discussion here because I'm lazy. I don't just give stand-up sermons without audience participation anymore. All right. I want all of you mentally, and you can go there if you want, but you're so familiar with the story, there's really no sense going there. I want you to think about the Garden of Eden, okay, about the creation account. Now, you remember how the story goes. I'm just going to paraphrase here about how there was this creation week. And we got down to the sixth day when God said, let's make man in our image. So he created mankind as male and female, and he put them in a garden. And what did he tell them they needed to do with their time? Dress and keep the garden. We're going to get back to that. And what else? Well, there's that. That's a part of the garden. But what else? Oh, there was that, but that's a negative. That's not what to do. Come on. Before the dressing and... Thank you. Be fruitful and multiply. All right? So we're going to be fruitful and multiply. Now, how much time during your day does that take? Well, at any rate, we'll let that comment go. We don't need to embellish on that anymore. All right? Now, this garden that they were to dress and keep, let's think about this garden for just a moment. Have you ever heard the term, let nature take its course, or we'll turn it back over to nature? And generally that's a phrase that's used after man has made a mess of something. You know, torn it all up, ripped it apart, polluted it, whatever. Well, if we can just let nature run its course, it will go back to its natural state, and nature pretty much jolly well takes care of itself, doesn't it? God designed it that way. So, if Adam didn't do anything in that garden to dress and keep anything, would it have made a whole lot of difference?
I don't think so, because God planted it and set it.
Yeah, God planted it, set it there, and so on. Now, here's the way I read the instruction where he said to dress and keep the garden. I get the impression that God was saying to Adam, okay, Adam, I've put you in the middle of this beautiful garden. Now, what do you want to do with it? I've given you all these animals. What do you want to name them? And Adam had the choice to be able to decide what he wanted to do, what he wanted to plant or replant or move or do this or do that, whatever the term dress and keep involves. And Adam had the discretion to do that. Do you think God micromanaged every move he made? I don't either. I think God pretty much gave him free choice to do what he wanted. Now, how many of you, just out of curiosity, have any kind of a garden where you live? Any kind of a garden? All right, well, that's part of your garden. All right? Let me briefly describe what my garden and how it has evolved. I think you'll like this story. If you went out the back door of my house, first of all, we have a kind of a all-weather sun porch with windows on three sides, totally insulated and everything. You can be out there winter or summer. But you go through that, and we have a fence that separates us at the back and the two sides from the neighbors. Okay? Now, on the two sides with the fence, there are these two massive walls of oleander. All of you know what oleander is, I'm sure. It can grow into a rather substantial bush. You know, it's down the median strip in many places, and 80 in the 99 highway and so on. And it really can get up there 12, 15 feet high if you let it go. Now, I have three massive pine trees. Two in the back on either corner of the yard, and one over on the south side of the house. And I'm glad it's on the south side of the house because the sun tracks that way, and it keeps my house in shade and really keeps down my air conditioning bill. Now, earlier on, years ago, I had it be in my bonnet that I ought to use all this land back here to do something productive. So I had about 5 different kinds of fruit trees. I had a vineyard. I mean, to tell you what, I had my garden planted and all the rest and so on and so forth. And I was doing big time back there. But you see, I ran into a little difficulty. First of all, these pine trees blocked out all the sunlight. And not much grew in the form of vegetables. Now, you grow some flowers because there are a lot of flowers that are shade tolerant. So you could do a few flowers. But the fruit really did not set that well or produce that much. And then I found out another hard fact of life that maybe you've heard me comment on in earlier sermons from years ago, is there's a creature in my backyard called a squirrel who loved to eat my fruit before I could get to it. And you know what I came to? I said to myself, this is a waste of time. I'm going to dress and keep my garden entirely differently. I'm first of all going to tear it all out. Tore out all the fruit trees, forgot the garden patch, and I do this every year, I harvest all the pine needles that fall in my yard and on my roof and so on and so forth.
Feeling the blues today or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? The Worldwide Church of God is located in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto, California. We welcome everyone to attend our worship services with us every week at the times listed on your screen.